If you feel like you're practicing all the time but barely improving, then this video is for you. These are the 4 pillars that transform my playing, and they could change yours too, so let's check it out. I want you to imagine for a second that there are 2 ways to practice anything music related. This outer circle represents a broad approach, and this inner circle is the narrow approach. And these little dots are you when you're practicing. Now, do you notice how the dots only touch the circles briefly but spend the majority of their time in the outer regions of the diagram? Good. Now we just need to establish exactly what I mean by a broad or a narrow approach, so the best way for me to do that is just to give you some examples. The most basic example is when you're trying to improve your technique on your instrument, so let's just start with that. The outer circle in this instance represents complete control and clarity. So let's say you're working on a picking exercise. Well, this would be a speed that's so easy you don't have to think about it. It just happens and it's perfect. The inner circle represents a speed that is past your limit. So let's say this would be a speed where you can still kind of do it, but it's messy, sloppy, and your arms are tense when you're doing the exercise. Now, when you actually go to practice this exercise, you don't want to spend all of your time in the outer circle or you never improve. But if you spend all your time in just the inner circle, your playing would be sloppy and tense, and you would start internalizing mistakes. However, if you can find the perfect balance, dancing between the two, spending the majority of your time right in between the 2 circles, that is where the most progress is made. Right around here is imperfect, but you aren't making many mistakes. When you briefly venture to the inner circle, it makes the areas closer to the outer circle feel a lot easier. And when you venture to the outer circle, it reminds you of how the areas closer to the inner circle are supposed to feel: clean, controlled, and effortless. Let me give you some more examples of broad and narrow approaches. Let's say when you go to write lyrics, they come out very bland and you want to fix that. In this instance, the broad approach represents abstract, visually stimulating lyricism. Now let's say the narrow represents very direct, feelings-based lyricism. You're just pouring your emotions out onto a page. So how would you go about practicing this? Let's say you start broad by brainstorming metaphors, similes, writing things that don't actually make sense but just sound cool. Then you go narrow and you dump out all of your emotions onto a piece of paper. Then the magic happens when you try to bring the two together. You start by going closer to the outer circle, less metaphorical, more metaphorical, as you dance between the broad and the narrow to find your perfect balance between abstract lyricism and direct, feelings-based lyricism. For me, it's allowed me to find a lot more color and richness. I feel like I'm actually able to express what I'm feeling a lot better. You could even apply this to mixing and mastering. Let's say in this instance, your mix is sounding muddy. So the broad approach is you listen to the full song in stereo and work on bringing more clarity into the mix. Now, the narrow approach is you listen to just the kick drum and try to EQ and compress it in a way that helps it stand out. You're probably not going to fix the problem by listening to the whole song all the way through and doing nothing else. And you're also probably not going to fix the problem by just focusing in on the kick drum. So what do? You bring instruments in, you pull instruments out, and you slowly carve out space that way, but you never neglect the full picture and you never neglect the fine details. Now, I'm not claiming to be an expert mixing engineer. I'm definitely not by any means, but I do think there is value in not spending too much time isolating one thing and not spending too much time listening to the full mix, instead flowing between the two until your mix sounds how you want it to. And that brings us to the power of isolating. Don't practice everything, practice the thing. Growth explodes when you stop saying, I suck at this, and you start saying, I suck at this one tiny detail in this one specific part of what I'm working on. Can't cleanly cross strings on outside strokes? Don't repeat the whole drill. Isolate just this one motion, loop it, strengthen it, and then bring it back into the context of the full exercise. Do your hooks feel weak? Instead of rewriting the same song, try setting a timer and writing 10 hooks. Train your melodic intuition, and then come back and see what new ideas that generates for the song you've been stuck on. Don't just practice, don't just find your weak points, but find the weak points of your weak points, hone in on those details, and naturally it will end up helping the full thing anyways. So how do we actually apply this knowledge practically? The wall technique is how I've turned these first 2 pillars into an actual system that you can use on a daily basis to improve your skills. What I'll do is if I am practicing something brand new, this could be anything, the very first session I just spend finding my wall. The wall is a speed where I am still able to play the exercise cleanly, but after getting 3 to 4 reps, that's when it starts to get a little bit messy. This is the point where if I were to push past that, I would start to get tense, but if I were to go below that, it would be too easy. This is my wall. Now for every other session, what I'll do is I'll set a timer for 5, 10, or 15 minutes, depending on the length of the exercise, and I start out that 10-minute exercise in the broad. full picture exercise, slow speed, consistency, then I slowly work up by 5 beats per minute until I hit my wall. Then what I do is I slowly start pushing the wall. I bounce around it by adding 3 beats per minute, then backing off by 2 beats per minute, getting comfortable near the edge. Then I'll take a quick rest and I will go into the narrow and I will get short bursts, not even the full exercise, just short, tiny bursts, 10 to 15 beats per minute above my wall. It's usually a bit tense and you don't want to live here for that long. But the goal of this is to make your wall feel a little bit easier. And then I begin my cool down and I work my way back into the broad. And that'll take up the entire 5, 10, 15 minutes of the exercise. Now, the other benefit to practicing this way is it makes the actual process feel a lot faster and a lot easier. When you set a timer and you set aside distractions and you focus exactly on, okay, start broad, go narrow, jump between it, the timer goes off before you know it. Now, even just doing 10 minutes a day of anything is enough to make serious gains in your playing. So it's about more than just making your practice more efficient, but it's also about making it more rewarding so you want to come back and do it the next day. And that brings us to the last point. Internalize what you practice and forget when you play. Doing the wall technique is completely pointless if you don't internalize what you're doing so that it comes out naturally when you're playing. The reason we work on theory and drills on our instrument is so that we can get closer and closer to freedom of expression. You shouldn't have to think while you play, but if you commit to thinking while you practice, playing becomes so much more fun as you unlock new sounds and find yourself hearing new ideas in your head. This is the reward of developing balanced practice habits. You don't need to practice for hours and hours a day, you just need to practice with clarity. Now, if you need help getting started, you can download my free practice log template in the description below. It's designed for using the wall technique, so it'll help you stay organized. If things get tough, because they will, don't give up on yourself, just breathe, keep pushing through, and you'll achieve those goals you set for yourself. Just keep going, you've got this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!